Have you ever wondered what happened to the most iconic cars in cinema history after the cameras stopped rolling? What if Hollywood's greatest automotive legends were sitting in garages, barns, and scrapyards right now, completely unrecognized? These are 11 lost movie cars that have never been found, and may never be. Number 11, the original Ghostbusters, Ecto-1.
In the neighborhood, who you gonna call?
The Ectomobile from the original Ghostbusters in 1984 is one of the most recognizable vehicles in American cinema history. The modified 1959 Cadillac Miller Meteor ambulance combination car captured the imagination of an entire generation and became as culturally significant as any character in the film. What most people don't know is that the original hero vehicle used for principal photography is not the restored version that appeared in Ghostbusters Afterlife in 2021. That vehicle was a different example sourced specifically for the sequel production. The original hero, Ecto-1, from the 1984 film, disappeared from documented record following the production's conclusion, and has never been located through any authenticated chain of custody connecting it to a known current owner. The vehicle's disappearance is particularly puzzling, given the extraordinary commercial success of the original film. Columbia Pictures' post-production vehicle disposal processes from the period were not structured to preserve assets whose future cultural significance nobody anticipated in 1984. The Hero Ecto-1 passed through the studio's standard vehicle disposal system and entered a chain of private transactions whose documentation has never been fully reconstructed by any researcher who has investigated the provenance trail. Several Ectomobile replicas and differently sourced 1959 Cadillac Miller Meteor examples have been presented as the original hero vehicle across subsequent decades. Each claim has been examined by Ghostbusters vehicle historians, and none has survived rigorous authentication scrutiny. The most credible authentication attempts have established that the presented vehicles, while sometimes genuine 1959 Miller Meteor examples of the correct type, do not carry the specific production modifications that would identify them as the hero vehicle from principal photography. The search for the original Ecto-1 has become one of the most actively pursued vehicle provenance investigations in film memorabilia history. Researchers have traced Columbia Pictures' vehicle disposal records, interviewed surviving production personnel, and examined every known 1959 Miller Meteor Cadillac in private collections across North America without producing a verified identification. The vehicle's distinctive production modifications, including specific roof equipment mounting points, interior preparation details, and structural changes made during the vehicle's preparation for filming, would make positive identification possible if the vehicle were found. The absence of any authenticated example after 4 decades of searching suggests one of 2 possibilities. Either the vehicle was destroyed during or after the production period without anyone recognizing its future significance, or it exists somewhere completely unrecognized by its current custodian, waiting for the researcher who asks the right question of the right person in the right Nevada state sale. Number 10, Bullitt's second hero, Mustang.
Driving right now.
The Steve McQueen, Bullitt's sync sequence is the most analyzed car chase in cinema history. Enthusiasts have documented virtually every frame of the 1968 sequence, identified every location, and traced the histories of both Highland Green Mustangs used during filming with extraordinary thoroughness. One of those Mustangs, chassis number 9R02S125559, was found in a Mexican junkyard, restored, and eventually sold at auction for $3.74 million in 2020. The other Mustang has never been found. The second Mustang, used primarily as the hero car for close-up and dialogue-adjacent sequences throughout the Bullitt production, was sold by Warner Brothers following the film's completion. Its subsequent ownership history has been investigated by some of the most determined vehicle provenance researchers in the collector car community, without producing a verified location. The most comprehensive investigation was conducted across a period of several years by a team whose research combined Warner Brothers production disposal records, California DMV historical documentation, and direct interviews with individuals connected to the car's known early ownership history. Their research established a partial ownership chain that ended at a point in the early 1970s where the documentation trail went cold without any evidence of what happened to the car subsequently. The Bullitt Mustang's cultural significance has made it the most commercially valuable unlocated film vehicle in history. Collector car specialists have estimated that a positively authenticated second Bullitt Mustang would achieve an auction price significantly exceeding the $3.74 million the first car achieved in 2020, potentially making it the most valuable American car ever sold. This commercial potential has driven decades of increasingly sophisticated search efforts, using techniques ranging from VIN number database searches through multiple states' historical records to physical examination of every Highland Green 1968 Mustang fastback that has appeared in the collector market across the past 5 decades. None of the examined examples has produced the authentication evidence required to confirm identification as the missing hero car. The car's physical existence somewhere in North America is considered probable by most researchers. Its concealment, whether intentional or accidental, has proven impenetrable to every search methodology applied to the problem. Number 9. The original Dukes of Hazzard, General Lee. Number 1. The General Lee from the Dukes of Hazzard is among the most recognizable television vehicles in American entertainment history. The orange 1969 Dodge Charger with its Confederate flag roof, 01 door numbers, and distinctive horn became one of the defining images of late 1970s American popular culture. What most Dukes of Hazzard devotees don't fully appreciate is the extraordinary number of Chargers the production consumed across its run, and the corresponding complexity of identifying which specific vehicle holds any particular production distinction. Estimates of the total number of Chargers destroyed during the show's production range between 300 and 500 individual vehicles, making the General Lee the most numerically costly vehicle fleet in television production history. Among all the Chargers consumed by the production, one specific vehicle holds a distinction that makes its current location the subject of particular historical interest. The first General Lee, prepared and used during the show's pilot episode, the vehicle whose appearance established the visual template that every subsequent General Lee was prepared to match, has not been located through any authenticated provenance chain connecting it to a known current owner. The pilot vehicle's preparation established specific visual standards for the roof graphics, the door numbering, and several other distinctive details that the subsequent fleet was required to replicate. Its physical existence as the original standard setter gives it a significance that transcends the individual vehicle's value as a single example from a very large fleet. The search for the original pilot General Lee is complicated by the absence of comprehensive production records distinguishing individual vehicles across the fleet. The sheer scale of the Charger consumption program meant that detailed tracking of individual vehicles was not prioritized in the production's administrative processes. Vehicles were sourced, prepared, used, and in many cases destroyed at a pace that overwhelmed detailed record-keeping. The original pilot vehicle's fate following its initial filming use is unknown because the administrative systems that would have tracked it were not designed to maintain the level of individual vehicle history that subsequent provenance researchers require. Several Chargers presented as the pilot vehicle have been examined by General Lee historians over the years. None has been authenticated. The original standard setter for the most reproduced television vehicle in American entertainment history is as lost today as it was the day production wrapped. Number 8. The Time Machine from the original. The Time Machine. The Time Machine prop from George Pal's 1960 film, adaptation of H.G. Wells' classic novel, occupies a position in film prop history that goes considerably beyond its status as a memorable movie vehicle. The prop was designed by William Ferrari and constructed with a level of craftsmanship that reflected the production's genuine ambition to create something visually extraordinary. Its combination of Victorian mechanical aesthetics, rotating elements, and the unique aesthetic sensibility Ferrari brought to the design produced an object that audiences in 1960 found genuinely transporting, and that subsequent decades have only elevated in cultural regard. The prop's post-production history began promisingly. George Powell retained the time machine following the film's completion and kept it in his personal possession for many years. It was displayed at various events and remained a cherished object, connected to one of the more beloved science fiction films of its era. The problem began following Powell's death in 1980. The prop's disposition in his estate was not clearly documented, and its subsequent movement through the hands of various collectors and intermediaries was tracked with decreasing precision as the years passed. Several individuals have claimed ownership or knowledge of the prop's location across the subsequent decades. A version of the prop appeared at an auction in the 1990s that generated significant attention in the film memorabilia community. Authentication questions about that auction item were never fully resolved, and its current location following the sale is itself unknown. The distinction between the original production prop and the various replicas that have been constructed over the decades adds complexity to any authentication attempt. Ferrari's original construction used specific materials and techniques that a sufficiently detailed physical examination should be able to distinguish from subsequent reproductions. However, no examination of a claimed original has produced authentication results that the film prop collecting community has accepted without reservation. The original time machine prop is considered by film prop historians as one of the three most significant unlocated objects in their field. Its combination of cultural significance, aesthetic distinction, and the romantic narrative of a time machine itself being lost in time has made it the subject of ongoing search efforts that have not produced a verified result across more than 4 decades of looking. Number 7. The Black Beauty from the Green Hornet television series. The Black Beauty from the 1966-67 Green Hornet television series represents one of the most elegantly conceived television vehicles of the 1960s. The modified 1966 Imperial Black Beauty was prepared by Dean Jeffries, one of the most respected custom vehicle builders of the era, whose work on the Green Hornet vehicle demonstrated the same extraordinary craftsmanship he brought to every project in his distinguished career. Jeffries transformed the Imperial into something that balanced the functional gadget aesthetic the show required with a visual elegance that complemented the Green Hornet's more sophisticated crime fighter image compared to the camp excess of its Batman contemporary on the same network. The show's short run, only one season of 26 episodes, meant that the Black Beauty did not achieve the sustained cultural exposure of vehicles from longer-running productions. However, the Green Hornet's connection to Bruce Lee, who played Kato across the entire run, has given the series a cultural afterlife that the original broadcast period did not anticipate. Lee's presence has driven sustained international interest in the show's memorabilia that makes the Black Beauty's current location a question of genuine commercial significance. Jeffries retained involvement with the vehicle following the show's cancellation, and has discussed it in interviews across his career. However, the specific chain of custody connecting the hero, Black Beauty, from principal photography to any currently known vehicle has never been established through documentation that the film vehicle collecting community considers conclusive. Several Imperial examples with Green Hornet connections have been presented over the years, but the distinction between Jeffries' original hero build and subsequently prepared promotional or replica vehicles has not been definitively established for any currently known example. The Black Beauty's combination of Jeffries' craftsmanship, Bruce Lee's association, and the vehicle's own distinctive visual character, it makes it among the most sought-after unlocated television vehicles in the collector market. The search continues without resolution. Number 6. The Vanishing Dodge Challenger. The 1970 Dodge Challenger, driven by Barry Newman's Kowalski character in Vanishing Point, represents one of the most philosophically loaded vehicles in American cinema history. The film's 1971 release transformed the white Challenger into a symbol of freedom, resistance, and the existential relationship between man and machine that resonated with a generation navigating the end of the 1960s counterculture. The car's cultural weight has only increased across subsequent decades as the film's reputation has grown from cult curiosity to recognized classic, making the original production vehicle's location one of the most pursued questions in American film vehicle history. The Vanishing Point production used multiple Challengers across its filming program, a standard practice for any production involving vehicles in demanding stunt sequences. The precise number of Challengers consumed by the production has been estimated by researchers at between 4 and 7 individual vehicles, with the uncertainty reflecting the incomplete production documentation available for a film made under the compressed conditions typical of low-budget early 1970s productions. The hero vehicle used for close-up and dialogue sequences was distinguished from the stunt vehicles by specific preparation details that production photographs from the period document with sufficient clarity to enable authentication. If a vehicle presenting itself as the hero, car could be physically examined against those reference images. The search for the Vanishing Point Hero Challenger has been ongoing since the collector car community developed sufficient sophistication to pursue film vehicle provenance in the 1980s. 20th Century Fox's production disposal records from the period are incomplete, and the chain of private transactions following the production's conclusion has been traced only partially by the researchers who have dedicated the most effort to the investigation. The most promising lead in the search's history emerged in the early 2000s when a researcher identified a white Challenger with specific characteristics matching production photographs in private ownership in the American Southwest. Physical examination of the vehicle produced evidence consistent with production use but insufficient to confirm hero vehicle status beyond reasonable doubt. The owner declined further investigation, and the vehicle's current status is unknown. The Vanishing Point Challenger's cultural significance ensures that its discovery would generate commercial and press attention, comparable to the Bueller Mustang's rediscovery. Dodge's subsequent revival of the Challenger nameplate has given the original film vehicle a contemporary commercial resonance that makes its location a matter of interest to the manufacturer as well as to film memorabilia collectors. The white Challenger that became a symbol of American freedom is itself lost somewhere in America, which is either the most ironic or the most appropriate conclusion to its story, depending on your perspective. Number 5. The original Knight Rider.
Knight Rider, a shadowy flight into the dangerous...
The Knight Rider television series that premiered in 1982 introduced audiences to the Knight Industries 2000 in the form of a modified 1982 Pontiac Trans Am that became one of the most beloved television vehicles in American entertainment history. The combination of the Trans Am's visual character, the show's extraordinary success across its 4-season run, and the specific kit modifications that gave the vehicle its distinctive identity created a cultural phenomenon whose commercial legacy continues generating revenue for the franchise's rights holders more than 4 decades after the show's debut. What the franchise's devoted fan community has never fully resolved is the current authenticated location of the original hero, Kiat, from the show's first season. The Knight Rider production used multiple Trans Am units across its run, a necessity imposed by the show's demanding production schedule and the physical toll that weekly television filming placed on the vehicles. Universal Television's vehicle management records from the production period documented individual units within the fleet with varying levels of detail across different production seasons. The first season hero vehicle, the Trans Am prepared for the pilot episode and used in the close-up and dialogue adjacent sequences that established Kit's visual identity, passed through Universal's post-production vehicle management system following the conclusion of Season 1 filming. Its subsequent disposition within or beyond Universal's vehicle inventory has not been established through any documentation that the Knight Rider vehicle collecting community considers conclusive. Several Trans AMs with Knight Rider connections have been authenticated through various levels of documentation across subsequent decades. Universal's own historical display vehicles have included Kiat examples, whose provenance connects them to specific production periods. However, the specific question of the pilot season hero vehicle's current physical location remains unresolved. The distinction matters commercially because the pilot vehicle's role in establishing the kit visual template gives it a historical significance within the franchise's vehicle hierarchy that subsequent season vehicles do not share in the same way. The Knight Rider fan community has sustained one of the most organized and technically sophisticated vehicle search programs connected to any television franchise. Their research has combined universal production records, California DMV historical searches, and a comprehensive registry of known Trans Ams with Knight Rider modifications. Despite this sustained effort, the pilot season hero vehicle remains unlocated through authenticated provenance documentation. KIT, a car famous for always knowing exactly where it was, is itself completely lost. Number 4. The Mad Max Interceptor. Number 1, the Main Force Patrol Interceptor from the original Mad Max, the black supercharged Ford Falcon XB GT that George Miller's film transformed into the most menacing police vehicle in cinema history, occupies a position in Australian film culture that transcends its status as a movie prop. The Pursuit Special, as it became known, defined an aesthetic that influenced vehicle customization, popular culture imagery, and subsequent franchise productions across more than 4 decades. The question of where the original Hero Interceptor from the 1979 film is located has been one of the most actively investigated questions in Australian film vehicle history for decades. The Mad Max production used multiple Falcon XB units across the filming program, with different vehicles serving different production functions across the principal photography period. The Hero Interceptor, prepared by the production's automotive team with a supercharger setup, the modified bodywork, and the specific preparation details visible in the finished film, was sold following the production's conclusion. Its early post-production ownership history is partially documented, with the car passing through several hands in Victoria during the years immediately following the film's release. The documentation trail becomes significantly less clear as the vehicle moves into the mid-1980s, with the last reliably documented ownership record placing the car in regional Victoria at a point where the subsequent transaction history becomes unverifiable through any available source. The search for the original Interceptor has attracted some of Australia's most dedicated film vehicle researchers across several decades. The combination of the car's cultural significance, its role in establishing an aesthetic that influenced global popular culture, and the straightforward Australian national pride connected to one of the country's most internationally recognized film productions has given the search a motivational intensity that comparable American vehicle searches sometimes lack. Multiple Falcon XB examples have been examined as potential heroes over the years, including several presented by owners with varying levels of conviction about their vehicle's production credentials. None has survived the authentication and scrutiny applied by researchers with access to production photographs detailed enough to enable component-level comparison. The original Mad Max Interceptor's location is considered by Australian film vehicle historians as the single most significant unresolved question in their field. Its discovery would represent a cultural event in Australia comparable to the return of a significant national artwork. George Miller himself has expressed interest in the vehicle's recovery across multiple interviews, without being able to contribute information about its location that advances the search beyond its current inconclusive state. Number 3. James Dean's Little Bastard.
Now, some people don't know this, but James Dean was a professional race car driver in between making films.
The Porsche 550 Spider that James Dean named Little Bastard and was driving when he was killed on California State Route 466 on September the 30th. 1955 represents the most historically and emotionally significant lost vehicle in American automotive history. The car's connection to Dean's death at the age of 24, at the moment when his film career was reaching its extraordinary peak following East of Eden and Rebel Without a Cause, transformed the little bastard from a racing car into an object carrying the full weight of one of American culture's most resonant tragedies. The Porsche was severely damaged in the accident that killed Dean, and seriously injured his passenger, Rolf Wütherich. Following the accident, the wreck passed through several owners who stripped components from it for various purposes. George Barris, the custom car builder, purchased the wreck, and the car's subsequent history involves a series of reported incidents, including injuries to people who came into contact with it, and various mishaps during transport that gave the vehicle a reputation as cursed. Whether these incidents were genuine or embellished by a developing legend, they contributed to an atmosphere around the car that made its ownership and movement a matter of ongoing public interest. The wreck was last reported as being transported by train from Florida to Los Angeles in 1960, when it disappeared. The train arrived at its destination without the little bastard aboard. The investigation into the little bastard's disappearance has never produced a verified explanation for what happened to the wreck between its loading onto the train in Florida and the train's arrival without it in Los Angeles. Theories range from theft by a party aware of the wreck's growing legendary status to a simpler administrative failure that resulted in the wreck being unloaded at an intermediate stop and never reclaimed. The 60-plus years since the disappearance have not produced any verified sighting of the wreck or any component definitively traced to it through authenticated provenance. The most famous lost car in American history sits somewhere unknown, carrying the weight of a cultural mythology that has only grown with each passing decade of unsuccessful searching. Number 2. The Dukes of Hazzard, Daisy's Jeep CJ5. While the General Lee rightfully dominates discussion of Dukes of Hazzard vehicle memorabilia, a supporting vehicle from the show's production carries a provenance mystery whose resolution has proved equally elusive to researchers despite receiving considerably less investigative attention. Daisy Duke's white Jeep, CJ5, known as Dixie, appeared across multiple seasons of the show and developed its own devoted following among the program's audience. The Jeep's combination of Daisy's character association and the vehicle's cheerful visual character gave it a memorability within the show's vehicle ensemble that made it more than simply a supporting prop. The Dukes of Hazzard production used multiple Jeep CJ5 units across the show's run, following the same multi-vehicle fleet approach that characterized the General Lee program. The original Hero Jeep used for close-up and character-adjacent sequences was distinguished from fleet units through specific preparation details that established Daisy's Dixie visual standard. The Hero vehicle's post-production disposition followed the same administrative process that managed the General Lee fleet's disposal, but with even less comprehensive documentation, given the Jeep's lower priority within the production's vehicle hierarchy. The Hero Jeep's administrative trail ends at a point shortly after the show's production, concluded without any verified record of its subsequent transactions. The Daisy Jeep search has been conducted primarily by Dukes of Hazzard fans, whose investigative resources are considerably more limited than the professional researcher networks that have pursued the General Lee and other high-profile film vehicles. Their efforts have produced a registry of known Dukes of Hazzard connected Jeep CJ5s that represents valuable documentary work without yet producing an authenticated Hero vehicle identification. Several CJ5s have been presented with Dukes of Hazzard claims across subsequent decades, but the documentation supporting these claims has not survived the scrutiny of authentication standards comparable to those applied to General Lee candidates. The Dixie Jeep's recovery would complete the Dukes of Hazzard vehicle picture in a way that the General Lee story alone cannot achieve. The show's vehicle ensemble was greater than its most famous member, and the Jeep that carried Daisy Duke across 7 seasons of Hazzard County deserves a provenance resolution that the investigation has not yet produced. The white Jeep is out there somewhere in America, which is exactly where Daisy would want it to be. Number 1. The Ferrari 250 GT California from Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
The 1961 Ferrari 250 GT California.
Gooding & Company is proud to present this 1961 Ferrari 250 GT.
The Ferrari 250 GT California Spider that appears in Ferris Bueller's Day Off is simultaneously one of the most famous cars in cinema history and the subject of one of the most persistent authentication controversies in film vehicle collecting. The 1986 John Hughes film placed the Ferrari at the center of its narrative with such skill that the car became as much a character as any performer in the cast. The sequence in which Cameron's father's prized Ferrari is accidentally destroyed by falling through the garage window into the ravine below became one of the most discussed vehicle destruction moments in cinema history, generating decades of speculation about what was actually destroyed and what happened to the genuine Ferrari 250 GT California that appeared in the film's earlier sequences. The production's approach to the Ferrari sequences involved multiple vehicles serving different purposes, a standard practice when a film requires a vehicle to be both carefully preserved for close-up photography and ultimately destroyed. The destruction sequence used a replica rather than a genuine Ferrari 250 GT California, a fact the production never concealed, and which is well documented. The genuine Ferrari 250 GT California used for the non-destruction sequences is the vehicle whose current location has generated the authentication controversy. Several Ferrari examples with Ferris Bueller connections have been presented over the years, each supported by varying levels of documentation and each subject to authentication. Challenges that have prevented the collector community from reaching consensus on any single vehicle's hero status. The commercial stakes of the Ferris Bueller Ferrari authentication question are extraordinary. A genuine Ferrari 250 GT California in comparable condition to a film hero vehicle would command a price in the tens of millions of dollars in the current collector market, making authentication an exercise with financial consequences that inevitably complicate the objectivity of any examination process. The authentication dispute has generated legal proceedings, competing expert assessments, and a level of acrimony within the Ferrari collecting community that straightforward provenance questions rarely produce. The original hero Ferrari 250 GT. California's location is either known to specific individuals within the Ferrari collecting world, whose commercial interests in the authentication dispute are not neutral, or it is genuinely unknown, and awaiting a provenance researcher whose approach to the question is sufficiently fresh to identify evidence that previous investigations have overlooked. Either possibility is consistent with the current state of the evidence. The most beautiful lost car in cinema history is either hiding in plain sight within a community that knows exactly where it is, or it is genuinely waiting to be found by whoever asks the right question at the right Ferrari auction on the right afternoon. And there you have it, 11 genuinely extraordinary vehicles that cinema gave to the world and the world somehow managed to lose. From a time machine lost in time to a freedom symbol lost in America, these cars and props represent the greatest unsolved mysteries in film history. If you know where any of them are, the world is waiting to hear from you.